on being an ass. Or, opposite. Womp, 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 womp. Womp, 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 womp.
Stronghold.
Stronghold womp.
Capture and hold 2 zones to score. The enemy has
I got the spanker, I'm going for C.
Enemy team.
Oh, I'm going to Bravo. Avenge the fallen Spartan brothers. How the fuck did he take a rocket to the face and not die, bro? Like, the rocket killed me.
Cover me.
Better than the fucking rocket, bro.
Stronghold outlet.
Jesus Christ!
Team score.
Into the Zen state. I'm taking B to home.
We've captured Bravo.
Fucking nade. He double clapped me with a nade. He's on our guy, they're on B. There's 3 dudes on B. All of them are on B. Oh, this is their coordinated. We're gonna have to work together tough, bro.
Stronghold Bravo. Lost.
I just killed him. Nading. I'm nading
I
as
got a
much as I
triple
can.
kill, motherfucker.
Your team score.
What up?
Let's go. We're moving in on A.
Cover me. Tossing a
They're
nade.
Everybody
going
on
for
A.
C. Alright, not here. They're not here. They're not here.
The enemy has captured Charlie.
They're going for B now. They're going for B.
Going back to B.
M41 Spanker. Inbound. The enemy has captured Bravo.
Enemy team score.
Fuck!
M41
Triple kill, motherfucker.
available.
Take that shit. I got 3 seconds.
My
3
shit.
seconds. 1
My
second.
shit.
I'm in.
I'm going for C.
Scoring.
I'm at B. I'm going for C. We got 3 dudes behind you. Just fucking don't die. Chuck nades. Chuck nades. Chuck nades. Chuck nades.
Fuck you. Oh, they're covering me.
The enemy has captured
Oh.
Alpha.
Oh.
Smack him. Smack him.
Oh, I missed. It was like it split a fucking poop hair away from his head, bro. I gave him a haircut.
Stronghold Charlie.
Cover B.
Going B. Going B. Going B.
This nigga doing? He's just fucking looking up in the air.
Stronghold Charlie.
Barley, bro. Yeah, kill that motherfucker.
Fucking bad, dude. I
Left,
hate
left,
when niggas
left.
don't
Rocket.
play the game, bro. If you're not gonna fucking play the game, at least stand in the fucking zone, you fucking idiot. Like, what the fuck, dude?
Bro, go in game chat. Tell him that shit.
I can't even fucking go on game chat, dude. For some reason, my shit doesn't even work.
I believe you. Fuck!
Fucking ban me from game chat because they know all the way I fucking talk shit to everybody.
No, it's good, bro. We're taking A. We're moving in on B now. Taking B, they moved.
M41 Spanker. Inbound.
Try to get the spanker, Isaac.
Plasma grenades.
I'm on B.
acquired.
Fuck, they killed me on B.
Give me it.
Okay, they're getting killed on B.
Victory.
They're hiding to the right, that little cove. taking B, hella tough. Alright, moving in on A. They're taking A, so I'm moving in on A.
Go A, go for A. I'm going on C.
I'm gonna take A. Solo. Solo A take. Watch.
We've captured
Alright, go ahead, go ahead.
Solo A
Your
take.
team scoring.
Hella tough, hella tough. They're in the middle. I'm taking A now. Going to C. I'm gonna go kill some bad guys.
How did he let you? What the
enemy
fuck?
has captured Charlie.
Niggas are ass, bro. Sergio's
Alright, we're
fucking
taking C.
dick.
Captured Bravo.
Little fucking
Enemy
sucks
team
dick.
scoring.
Alright, dude's
Stronghold
flanking.
Charlie
I'm flanking.
is ours.
Eyes up.
The enemy has captured Alpha.
Oh, they fucked me up. They're going back for A. Or, C. They're all going on C.
Why is the nigga not going in the zone? He fucked me up with his own grenade! He's fucking throwing grenades at me!
Lost. Zone. C.
Fucking idiot, I'm gonna fucking kill this dumbass.
Chuck nades down that fucking street, bro.
Oh my god, bro. How are you not covering B with me? You're right fucking next to me, Brody.
Bro, I don't want to sit here shit if you're not calling out nothing. How am I supposed to know that?
What do you mean? How are you gonna run away if there's niggas right there like, oh, yep, these niggas are right here, I'm just gonna
Bro,
run
you
away
hear me
somewhere else.
talking, bro.
M41 Spanker. Inbound.
What are you exactly doing for your hockey? You're winning hella bad, Brody. You're not coordinated.
Grenade out.
Those niggas ain't hearing you. They're not doing what you're saying, obviously. So you might as well just fucking play with me, you motherfucker. What are you doing? I don't help these motherfuckers because they're not gonna help me. The only person I fucking try to help is you. And you don't even help me, what the fuck?
We've captured Charlie. Stronghold Alpha.
Nah, I'm right behind you.
Lost.
Closing in.
They killed me.
They're mopping us up! Enemies on me!
Enemy team nearing victory.
The enemy has captured.
We got
Charlie.
dominated, bro. Just let them win now, bro. Let them fucking win, bro, so we can go fucking play a new game already. Tired of this shit. Nobody fucking helping them.
We're close.
Defeat.
Kind of a bunch of noobs.
We're the noobs, nigga.
I'm a noob cube. This is what I'm gonna do.
My shit went down a pube hair. Yours went down a pube hair too. How do you rank up in the damn fucking shit, bro? Event challenges. What are the event challenges?
Coming at you with a brand new Halo Infinite video, and in this video we're going to be breaking down
I'm not
20
understanding.
tips, rapid fire style, a mixture of simple and advanced tips, so you can easily dominate the
It doesn't say how to
offensive
unlock
game.
it.
But for
No,
these
we're not.
videos,
Earn
we're gonna be a
rewards
top-tier Onyx
by
player and climb the
completing
Onyx ladder. I
event
I went up a
challenges.
little bit.
Brand new Halo Infinite game link down below.
What
that
event
includes
challenges?
in-depth pro breakdowns, VOD reviews, teaching you step-by-step proper decision making.
There's no
In that
event
map,
challenges,
guys,
they're just
weapon
regular
wars,
challenges
tons
of the
of
week.
advanced content stacked to the brim, so you gotta go check it out right now down below. But
It's
without
amazing.
further ado, let's jump into the video. Now the first tip that we gotta break down is shooting grenades when they're on the spawners will actually destroy them and they will explode. It is actually surprising how much this can come up, because if an enemy is running to try to grab a
Yeah,
grenade, you can
nigga.
shoot it right before they do, and then they're gonna
fuck,
take a lot
Halo?
of damage and you're gonna be able to get a free kill. Now in a lot of fights, you're typically fighting with your weapon and you need to reload, right? But switching weapons is a lot faster than reloading. However, dropping your weapon is even faster than swapping. This can be really clutch if you're fighting a 1v1, and afterwards you just gotta remember to pick up your weapon. And you can even incorporate combos like charging up a plasma pistol, hitting an enemy with it, and dropping your weapon instantly and having it so the blast hits them, and then you hit the headshot almost simultaneously afterwards.
Oh,
You
that'd
can
be
really
dope.
win a matchup and take almost no damage at all. Now, the repulsor is an amazing item that can let you do a lot of outplays in Halo. First off, it lets you completely destroy sword users. If they try to get close, you can repulsor them back and just shoot them in the freaking head with your VR. On a lot of maps like Livewire, you can actually boot people off the map, especially if you're playing oddball and you play around the edge. You can really get a lot of free kills this way. And of course, you can use the repulsor to scale vertically as long as there's ground underneath you and you
Bruh.
jump before you use it. on the ground. Now,
You
next
ever
up
use
is
the
sidekick.
repulsor-
Sidekick
the
actually has the
repulsor to
fastest
fucking
time to
jump?
kill out of any of the bullet-based weapons.
No.
If you look down and you repulse down, it'll launch you in the air.
Headshot
Hella
that
tough.
only takes 5 shots and you can shoot it rapid fire, but do remember that it does have bloom. Next up, we do gotta talk about the plasma pistol. Now, the plasma pistol, of course, a fully charged plasma shot can break shields. However, you can actually
Well, let's
shield
test that
and
theory
shoot
out,
the
Brody.
enemy if they just popped over shield. This could be
Oh,
great
this
for
is
a map like
distributor.
Bazaar, where you can always
Moving
grab
into
that
you.
plasma pistol,
That's
but
not
if
it.
you're not in a situation to stop the enemy from grabbing over shield, you can actually charge up a shot, shoot them and melee them, and
Moving
get a
into
full
you.
kill on someone who is pushing and aggressively thinking the overshield will save them.
Oh, it's gonna be
but
on.
it won't. Next up, we gotta talk
Your
about
team
crouching.
You let him
Now,
fucking
crouching
kill you
allows
and me?
you to stand
And you
on
didn't tell me he
objects
was
that
there?
you wouldn't be able to while jump
It's
standing. It basically just picks your legs up and allows you to perch on
enemy
objects
has
you wouldn't
captured
normally be,
Charlie.
or extends your maximum
Stronghold
jump
Yeah,
height.
you really do a lot of
This
talking, huh,
actually goes
Brody?
directly
Yeah, bro.
with our 7th tip,
Good
where
shots,
there will
bro.
be
Yeah,
panels
bro.
like this, and they're on
This
a
guy's
ton
gonna
of
talk.
Not talking
different
bullshit,
maps.
bro.
You can actually crouch jump on top of, and the majority of them allow
Bunch
you
of
to jump
bullshit
on top
that
of
doesn't
it.
fucking mean anything, bro.
Mind you, Isaac.
If you ever see this, keep in mind that most of the time this is
Come on, buddy.
intentionally to allow you
Oh,
to crouch
bitch.
jump on
That
top
sucked,
and
that
then
sucked.
jump off and shortcut your way to a different area.
Fuck, I missed him,
Now,
bro.
next up, we gotta talk about is the difference between body shots and headshots. And if enemies have shields, there is none. This is a big problem that a lot of people have, where they think that the headshot is doing more damage, but it's not doing any more damage. It doesn't have any shields. This means you really need to be aiming center mass first before you actually break their shield.
I got a thing
Go
called
for the
hold this,
headshot,
bro.
and weapons like the
Stronghold
VR, the
Charlie.
sidekick, and the
Lost.
VLR all
Enemy
one tap in
team
the head
score.
when shields are broken. This also leads me to my 9th tip, where you need to understand that you should not be moving or crouch spamming like crazy while your shields are intact. Oftentimes people learn this before
behind.
However,
behind you, idiot!
headshots don't matter until the shields are broken, so your movement should change to reflect
And you
that.
still don't look at him? What are you doing, bro?
Stuck him. Stuck him,
While
bitch.
the drop ball can be
Fuck
easily
no,
broken
nigga.
by
Fuck
shooting
I told you
Fuck
behind
you,
him, and then you're still not looking his fucking way.
You need to make sure that the moment
Bro,
that
if
they
I
are
turn
focused
around,
on
I'm
the
gonna get
drop
killed
off,
by the guy
that's
I'm
me
trying to kill,
get
bro.
damage
That was
advantage
your
on
guy.
them.
The energy sword, nigga? You're really not gonna kill the energy sword, nigga.
Fuck, bro.
I did, and I stuck him.
Come on, dude, on E.
Nobody else is important but the energy sword, nigga.
Bro, I stuck him. You didn't kill him, bro. You died.
And every time you
Fucking, you didn't do anything. You're
Okay.
faced the whole other way while somebody fucking energy sworded me, you fucking idiot.
Next up, we
You
gotta
kill.
talk
You
about
got energy, so should have got energy.
It's an
Sorry, bro.
amazing weapon, and its uses are
I'm not gonna give you call outs no more, I'm just gonna let you die now.
Why?
I'm
would
not
you
even
do
gonna kill the
that?
person that's next to you. I'm not even gonna kill the person next to you, I'm just gonna let him kill you.
Dude, I was getting dropped.
And then I'll go to kill him afterwards.
Over on
And then you're gonna kill him afterwards.
Enemy runs as fast as they can, trying to grab over shield, only for who is going to get right in front of their eyes and get a free kill because they're out of position. On top of that, if the flag is not attached to the enemy's base, you can grab the flag and move yourself.
Oh, and
Oh yeah, kill Brody, thank you.
So it's something that you should keep note of. And of course, you can grab on the people so they can't run away from you.
See, I watched that fool
Damn.
kill you, bro. I could have shot him,
I
but I
didn't know there
didn't.
was a
You can use
variant
the grapple hook to go
to that one.
down a gravity lift,
You have to
so
reach with a
you can
fucking
basically run
lion,
away
dog.
where an enemy cannot chase you because anyone else that tries to go down you will not be able to. The next thing that we need to talk about is flag juggling. All you need to understand is that the flag will carry your momentum, so you're gonna jump and throw the item, and then you're gonna sprint, grab the item, and then jump and throw the item. Rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. You can even put a slide in there if you're trying to dodge enemy fire, or you're trying to
Stronghold
do a little bit
Charlie.
of mix up because an
Lost.
enemy's trying to shoot at you. Now for the next tip, I gotta talk about the best secondary in all of ranked, and it's undoubtedly the Mango. It's seeing a lot of high impact in pro play and high level rank alike. So the first thing that you need to understand is that the Mango is a
Like
projectile
really can fucking jump from that far to hit
doesn't
me.
mean that it's hard to hit. It's a pretty fast projectile. It's just from very far away. You are gonna have to arc it.
Even when I nearly niggas when it shows the red, fucking doesn't even commando.
Fast, and you can jiggle feet via corners and get a lot of damage off. On top of that, because it has a spike on the end of it, you're gonna have a higher melee damage, which means if you shoot one person in the body and melee instantly after, they will just die flat out. Now this is a really great catch from the BR, because from the BR you're going to be powerful from some of the longer ranges, but if an enemy comes in close and you're holding a corner, you can easily shoot, melee them before they even know what happened. And that's why the Mango is a very powerful secondary that you should almost always grab if you cross by it. And next up, we do got to talk about the shock rifle, because a lot of people don't understand if this weapon one-shot hits in the head or if it doesn't. But what you need to understand is that the shock rifle actually fires a small burst of 3, almost like a BR sniper, even though it looks like one continuous beam. Now this means that if an enemy is running and you only hit them with one of the 3 bursts, you're not going to be able to get that one-shot headshot kill, but if an enemy is standing still, you can actually one-tap them with that shock rifle. Now this means that up against shock rifles, you should always be jiggle peeking and shooting them, or you should never be standing still and running from point A to point B. If you're not standing
Yeah,
still,
get one
it's very
fucking
hard for
shot
the
and just
shock rifle to
melee me.
one-tap you. And when you're using the shock rifle, you're going to find that shooting body consistently and getting the entire burst in the body is going to be a more consistent way at killing people who only need 2 shots. And on top of that, it's going to be doing damage to enemies nearby the person you shoot, and you can also shoot guns on the ground and equipment or item spawners, and it will actually do damage to anyone that goes near those things that you charge. And next up, grenades can actually
Christ,
bounce
where you at, you motherfucker?
This is really strong to do, because you can bounce something like an energy sword right to you instead of having to cross the cavern to get it. And of course, you can bounce things like the oddball if you want to get it out of a risky position, but you don't want to go chase it out into the open. This can be a really good way to get the item to you. Now, speaking of oddball, going on to our next tip, what you should typically be doing on oddball, especially maps like live fire specifically, is playing to throw the oddball off the edge. Now, one thing that I see a lot of players do is they will be full health, enemies will be swarming them, and they will just jump off full health with the oddball. But the big problem with that is the entire enemy team are just going to get to kind of pivot, go towards the oddball spawn, and they have advantage because you're dead. A far better thing to do is actually, when the writing is on the wall, you throw the oddball off, and then you try to play to either 1, fight the enemies off the oddball spawn from behind, or 2, you try to do as much
Bunch of
work
fucking
or
smurfs,
damage to
bro.
enemies as much as you possibly can before they actually get to
Smurfs,
kill you.
you fucking
So it gives
suck.
your teammates much
Getting
more
your
time
actual
to
rank,
get that
bitch.
oddball spawn, rather than just throwing away your life for no reason.
Oh,
But there's a lot of
Jesus
really good
Christ.
settings that you can turn on in Halo Infinite, and I have a complete settings guide that you can go check out. But the number 1 settings that everyone should put on is specifically the offset setting, where you turn your horizontal to 100, your vertical and depth to -100, and this just allows more of your screen to show at no cost to you, which is just
Oh shit. Pro tip. I don't know if you want to listen to it, but
Cody.
so
Oh, I'll be back. Hold on.
alright. Where's the offset at?
spawn, rather than just throwing away your life for no reason. Now, there's a lot of really good settings that you can turn on in Halo Infinite, and I have a complete settings guide that you can go check out, but the number one settings that everyone should put on is specifically the offset setting, where you turn your horizontal to 100, your vertical at depth to -100, and this just allows more of the screen to show at no cost to you, which is just a net positive.
Hey, go to your
strictly better than
settings, go to
settings.
UI right now.
Next up, we gotta talk about peaking angles.
Settings?
Yeah.
How do you do that?
Push start.
Uh-huh.
Go to
UI?
settings, go to UI. We go all the way to the bottom. Then it's gonna see offset.
Depth offset?
Yeah, make horizontal offset 100.
Horizontal offset 100. Uh-huh.
Now vertical offset -100.
Yeah.
And then the bottom one -100.
What does that do?
It gives you more space on your screen to see. Like your weapon won't be as much in the way. You gotta do it all.
You could fucking do what with all of them.
Set the offset. For
On
melee,
what?
pistol, rifle, and heavy. See the weapon type?
No. Oh, melee.
If you don't like it, all of them are on 0, so. But I'm looking up tips right now. See what the pros are doing.
Cost to you, which is just a net positive, strictly better than having the other settings. Now, next up, we got to talk about peaking angles, and one of the best things you can do in Halo Infinite is changing the way you peak an angle. If you keep jiggling an angle over and over and over again the same way, where you peek out, shoot a little bit, and peek back in, and you can just keep doing that over and over and over, oftentimes enemies are just going to put their crosshair right where you keep peeking out, and then they'll just be ready for you once you jiggle out and get some free damage on you. But if instead you like jiggle it twice and then you jump wide peak or you wide swing, enemies will get caught off guard, and that could be a way that you get some damage advantage in them. Jiggle out and get some free damage on you. But if instead you like jiggle it twice and then you jump wide peak or you wide swing, enemies will get caught off guard, and that could be a way that you get some damage advantage in the matchup. Basically, you're trying to mess up enemies' prediction by feigning a slight habit only to break it immediately after that. Now, next up, what's up, everybody? Couch. What's up, everybody? Couch Mills here, coming at you with a brand new Halo video. And in this video, I'm going to be breaking down how to aim like an absolute god in Halo. Mechanical skill is one of the most important things that you could have in Halo Infinite if you want to have a high time to kill. So I'm going to be breaking down all the tips and tricks to achieve that godlike aim so you can dominate your opposition. Make sure to smash that like and subscribe if you don't want to miss out on any of the news, guides, and updates we have on Halo Infinite on this channel. But without further ado, let's jump to the video. Now, the first thing that we need to talk about is time to kill. First off with shields, then with flesh. We've covered this in many videos, but after the shields are broken, any bullet will one tap in the head, and with the BR, 3 bursts and 2 bullets later will break their shields, and the last bullet in the last burst will be able to headshot, killing the enemy. Now, if you manage to do this with no wasted bullets, you're gonna get something called perfection, which means you killed an enemy as quickly as you possibly could without
Play a
missing
couple
any
games,
shots.
buddy.
It's
Tough, I need to go
definitely
sell
very
sack.
satisfying. And as a general rule of thumb,
I'll be back.
you actually don't have to aim head level with every single shot you take, because shield health is going to be dealt the same amount of damage no matter if you shot them in the foot or you shot them in the head, and center of mass is going to be the easiest target. That being said, as you play in coordinated stacks with fellow teammates, spamming head level is going to be incredibly important, because if you're able to all shoot them at the same time, then one of you is going to be able to finish them off a lot quicker, because you're all aiming head level and there's extra damage to go around. Now, that being said, there's 2 fundamental types of aiming that you'll see in Halo Infinite: tracking-based aim and flicking-based aim. Tracking first, where you track the target as it moves through the air and you're keeping your crosshair on the target as much as possible. And then flick-based shots, where you're literally swiping across your screen to hit tap shots. Now, that being said, in general, tracking is going to be far more used in Halo because of that high amount of health, that high time to kill. But you can incorporate flicking, especially if that enemy is one shot, that enemy is that one shot to the head. Being able to flick across your screen and finish off a target that is quite a bit away from you but is low health, or that one tap, is definitely very important, and that's why flicking practice is still important as well. Now, different type of weapons are going to allow you to aim fundamentally different. For example, if a weapon has a single fire, so something like a shotgun, what you can do with it is you can jiggle out of a door frame, take a shot, and between or in between your shots, because there's a downtime before you can shoot again, you can unjiggle from the door. So jiggle out, shoot, jiggle back in. This allows you to peek out for a very small window where you're dealing damage, and then you're behind cover when you're not dealing damage. Unlike a weapon like an assault rifle that would have to fight in open space like an absolute god in Halo. Mechanical skill is one of the most important things that you could have in Halo Infinite if you want to have a high time to kill. So we're going to be breaking down all the tips and tricks to achieve that godlike aim so you can dominate your opposition. Make sure to smash that like and subscribe if you don't want to miss out on any of the news, guides, and updates we have on Halo Infinite on this channel. But without further ado, let's jump to the video. Now, the first thing that we need to talk about is time to kill. First off with shields, then with flesh. We've covered this in many videos, but after the shields are broken, any bullet will one tap in the head, and with the BR, 3 bursts and 2 bullets later will break their shields, and the last bullet in the last burst will be able to headshot, killing the enemy. Now, if you manage to do this with no wasted bullets, you're gonna get something called perfection, which means you killed an enemy as quickly as you possibly could without missing any shots, and it's definitely very satisfying. And as a general rule of thumb, you actually don't have to aim head level with every single shot you take, because shield health is going to be dealt the same amount of damage no matter if you shot them in the foot or you shot them in the head, and center of mass is going to be the easiest target. That being said, as you play in coordinated stacks with fellow teammates, spamming head level is going to be incredibly important, because if you're able to all shoot them at the same time, then one of you is going to be able to finish them off a lot quicker, because you're all aiming head level and there's extra damage to go around. Now, that being said, there's 2 fundamental types of aiming that you'll see in Halo Infinite: tracking based aim and flicking based aim. Tracking first, where you track the target as it moves through the air and you're keeping your crosshair on the target as much as possible, and then flick based shots, where you're literally swiping across your screen to hit tap shots. Now, that being said, in general, tracking is going to be far more used in Halo because of that high amount of health, that high time to kill, but you can incorporate flicking, especially if that enemy is one shot, that enemy is that one shot to the head. Being able to flick across your screen and finish off a target that is quite a bit away from you but is low health, or that one tap, is definitely very important, and that's why flicking practice is still important as well. Now, different type of weapons are going to allow you to aim fundamentally different. For example, if a weapon has a single fire, so something like a shotgun, what you can do with it is you can jiggle out of a door frame, take a shot, and between or in between your shots, because there's a downtime before you can shoot again, you can unjiggle from the door. So jiggle out, shoot, jiggle back in. This allows you to peek out for a very small window where you're dealing damage, and then you're behind cover when you're not dealing damage. Unlike a weapon like an assault rifle that would have to fight in open space and consistently do damage, you're doing your damage in large chunks, allowing you to reveal yourself for a very small amount of time and still get that kill. But the aim is going to be a lot different, because you're typically going to want to aim center mass, and you're going to want to make sure to most likely flick to your target, because they may have moved position between your jiggle peaks of the door frame. Now, the next thing that we need to talk about is hit scan versus projectile weapons. Specifically, projectile are weapons that have a travel time, so when you throw them or shoot them, there is a delay between them actually hitting their target. Projectiles are also grenades, so regular grenades, sticky grenades specifically, or just projectile or things you're shooting like rocket launchers, and every single projectile has a certain amount of travel time, and the slower the projectile, the less of 100% certainty the projectile will hit. Let me give you a perfect example. Let's say that there's an enemy far away and you're trying to hit them directly with a rocket launcher, right? During its travel time, they can move to the left, they can move to the right, they can dodge it during its travel time. It's pretty quick, but it's not 100%. Now, if they're walking in a straight line and you shoot it as they're walking, that's a prediction, but they can still change directions last minute, jump, or whatever the case may be. This is why typically when you use a weapon with splash damage, you want to fire in a way that no matter where they move, it will still kill the enemy or damage them severely, and you already have your other weapons whipped out, whether it's a VR or whatever the case may be, to finish off a low target if it didn't fully kill that enemy. Now, the opposite of this is hit scan weaponry, where it literally scans. If your crosshair is on the enemy's head and you press that trigger, you are going to kill them instantly. It is a detection thing. There is no travel time. There is no room for failure. It is an either deal damage to them or no deal damage to them, no travel time, no whatsoever, and it requires less prediction and more reaction. So a great example of this would, let's say you hurt an enemy very bad, you threw a grenade there, and then you're holding a really tight angle to the left. So if an enemy backs up in that tight angle, you can hit them, kill them, finish them off, punish them right then and there. But if an enemy is only peeking for like a millisecond, a projectile weapon wouldn't possibly be able to travel that in time to punish them for that little tiny microscopic second they peek you, even if they're at 1 HP. Now, the next up, we got to talk about movement and aim. How does movement help your aim or hinder your aim? So first off, let's talk about jumping, because I think a lot of people love to jump in Halo, but it actually can be pretty bad to do, especially if you're up against certain weaponry. The one thing that if you're jumping with no abilities, you're in a fixed position, which means enemies are going to be able to line up and track you as you fall. They know where you're in the air, they know where you're going to land, and it's easy for someone that is skilled with something like a sniper rifle to line it up to where they are going to be able to hit you while you're in that fixed position. Now, you can counteract this if you jump in the air and midway through that jump, you have the strafe that you use midway, so you're kind of playing on the perception that you are going to be in a static motion when in reality you're not going to be. Now, on top of that, something that a lot of people will try to do is crouch spamming. Now, I'm going to explain in a little while why I think crouch spamming is not really that efficient, especially up against controller users, but in general, crouching can be a way to actually mess up an enemy's aim that is aiming head level. So if you're fighting a sniper user and you don't want to risk getting headshotted, you could technically crouch as you're spraying them. This alters your headshot hitbox, so it can be a really viable strategy, specifically when you are already shields broken and you're trying not to get sprayed in the head, because that's what enemies are trying to do. But keep in mind that the more you crouch spam, the more you're going to make it so that you are actually messing with your own accuracy as well, because you're crouching like crazy, your gun, your crosshairs moving like crazy. So it's just something to keep in mind. If it's going to hurt your aim, it's probably something that you shouldn't do. If you have the advantage in the fight, like the enemy has broken shield and you're pretty full, you don't want to be crouch spamming in that situation. Now, I'm going to briefly talk about some of the weaponry, specifically weapons like a sniper. They can be really easily punished if enemies know where you are. They can spray you out, they can jiggle peek spray you and prevent you from scoping in. So it's really important to try to get an off angle on an enemy and try to finish them off before they realize you're there. Also note that if you're scoped in with the sniper, it is incredibly bright and enemies know that they're being looked at with that sniper if they look towards you. So it's really going to be very difficult to fight someone 1v1, especially a good player. If you have a sniper and they know where you are, they can jiggle BR spray you, push forward, jiggle BR spray you, push forward, and that would be the effective strategy that you need to do if you want to push a sniper rifle opponent. It's all about preventing them from zooming in and not giving them that option to snipe you in the freaking head and win the matchup just like that. Now, quite a few energy weapons have a certain level of tracking, which if a weapon has a tracking element, something like a needler that will track onto an enemy slightly, that is when you can move like a psychopath. Crouch spam, left, right, you can even jump sometimes, whatever you have to do, because you're moving sporadically, but it's not hurting your aim. Because the energy weapon is slightly locking on, you don't have to be perfectly accurate like the enemy, especially if you're cracked. You just want to move that headshot hitbox as much as freaking possible while dishing out as much of this tracking based damage as possible to the enemy. Now, of course, we got to talk about mouse versus controller. Now, I'm not doing a debate mouse versus controller. That's not really that important to me at all, but I do need to talk about the strengths and weaknesses of both and how you should probably change up how you're playing depending on what type of enemies you're going against or potential. So like the joint queue, for instance, you are, as a mouse and keyboard player, going to be going up against controller players. And after grinding both the solo, duo, mouse and keyboard only, and the joint controller mouse hybrid to mid to high diamond, I do think that in general, spamming crouch is not going to work as well against controller. Their aim is more centralized, and on top of that, the slight tweaks to your headshot hitbox is not going to work as well compared to the slight amount of fixing that the aim assist does. So that's just something important to keep in mind, because while moving your head is actually instantaneous, so is the aim assist itself. So that's something that you need to keep in mind. It's not going to mess people up as much as it would against a mouse and keyboard user. Now that being said, that doesn't mean I think that controller users have an advantage, because I really don't think that at all. I want to make that completely clear here. And mouse and keyboard users, I mean, there's just so many features that we have. I mean, it's just lines and lines of advantages as far as being on an actual computer, having extra movement, in my opinion, more sporadic movement, things like that. And you can overcome a lot of these disadvantages with more fluid movement across the map. So that's something that you need to keep in mind, and just in general, don't spam crouch as much. Now, speaking of mice, just as a side tidbit, I'm going to be doing another video that breaks down all of the things that you should be getting as a console or a PC user as far as the best setup you can have. But if you have a mouse as a PC user that is over 100 grams and huge with 1,000,000 buttons, you need to replace that immediately. As far as aim is concerned, the lighter the mouse typically is going to be better. The less buttons on your mouse is also going to be better. This means optimizing just the raw input of your hand, as opposed to having all the flexibility of all the buttons on the mouse, because every time you press these buttons, you're going to be messing up your aim. A heavier mouse is going to have less direct input from your arm. It's going to put more pressure on your wrist and your fingers. Leave those gigantic mice for, you know, Dota or League of Legends, and get an FPS mouse for freaking Halo Infinite. But if you have any questions about this video, definitely let me know down below, and I'm going to be doing a lot more breakdowns in the future, breaking down a lot of these sections into pieces, because I'm really touching bare bones here, and there's just so much strategy involved in Halo that there's just a lot to freaking talk about. Definitely let me know if you have any questions down below. Thank you so much for coming by. Smash the like, subscribe. I love your faces, and I'll see you next time.
Stockpile.
Button layouts. The key thing with layouts is to pick something that is comfortable, but most importantly, something that lets you maintain full contact on the right stick at all times. This is why so many players have played on the bumper jumper layout for over a decade. This layout moves the jump to the LB button, which allows you to maintain your thumb on the right stick at all times while jumping and moving. You don't want to be sliding your thumb off of the thumbstick to a face button for actions during engagements and fights. This is also the same reason that a SCUF, Xbox Elite, or something like the Collective Minds Xbox One mod pack are really useful. These controllers all have back paddles that allow you to map face buttons such as reload, switch weapon, and use equipment to the paddles that you can all press without having to remove your thumb from the right thumbstick. Alternatively, there's always the option to claw. Clawing is when you bring your index finger up onto the top of the face buttons, and you use your middle finger for the right trigger and for RB. This is an option a lot of players use, and I used to use it for many years. I, however, have big hands, and clawing for me can be pretty painful after a longer session, so I'm a pretty big fan of the back paddle option. I've left some links in the description if you're interested in looking at any of these things, like the Collective Minds little attachment or an Elite. I'm not sponsored by any of them, but if you do purchase them, the Amazon affiliate links in the description do help me out, which is appreciated if you guys enjoy the content here. I recommend turning on hold to crouch. This will allow you to Gandhi hop and crouch strafe in gunfights. We'll talk about that in a second. The default setting is turned off, I think, which I don't really recommend. Gandhi hopping, if you're new to the franchise, it's a technique players use at the end of a gunfight when their shield is popped and they're trying to avoid incoming headshots and prolong the engagement with potential shot strings. When you jump in the air and spam crouch, your player's head model will shift up and down slightly. Now, this is not a whole lot of movement, honestly, and it won't get you out of many situations, but every once in a while, this desperation technique can save you in a gunfight, and it's worth practicing and using occasionally. Not all the time, but in very certain situations, and that's why you want to have that hold to crouch on. Similarly, during gunfights, especially in this game where the strafe speed is incredibly high, throwing a crouch into your strafe or multiple crouches can be useful. This is not to be overdone, however. I see a lot of new players jiggle strafing and spamming crouch way too often. When sprinkled in occasionally, it can really throw off the opponent's shot string if done correctly. Don't do it too much. That is all to say, pick a button layout that feels the most comfortable for you. You can also now remap everything, which is fantastic. Just prioritize keeping your right thumb on the right stick at all times, be it clawing or through a controller like back paddles. This is a big one, like especially if you're new to Halo. Set the right habits early. It's pretty amazing, again, so don't miss out if there's a particular button mapping you'd like to switch. I personally play on bumper jumper, and I'll be doing that throughout the majority of Halo Infinite. Controller vibration. Some pros use it and some don't. I personally do not use vibration as it tends to distract and apply stress during moments when I want to be fully focused on my aim and accuracy during a shot string. The game gives you all the visual feedback on screen to indicate when you are being shot. Vibration is one added layer to that, but again, if you turn it off, you have all the visual feedback necessary to know that you are being shot. This one, again, is purely personal preference. There are pros who use it and those who do not, and personally, I recommend turning it off, as it can, for some, feel so much better not having the added pressure of your device shaking in your hands while you are trying to make fine adjustments to your aiming. Sensitivity we will talk about soon, as it's complicated, especially with Halo Infinite. Next, a few settings I want to recommend disable. At the very bottom of the video settings are these options. I recommend disabling your speed lines, so when you sprint in this game, you get these kind of wind streaks across the screen. I find them to be a little bit distracting. If you like them, great, but I think it's just added visual feedback that takes away from your potential to spot an opponent or potentially see somebody flanking. The other two I recommend turning down would be blur. And again, this is a personal preference if you're purely going performance, right? These are things that are very cinematic, where during explosions and sprinting and equipment use, you get this cool blur on the screen. But once again, if you're trying to be fully competitive, that doesn't really aid you. And then the screen shake element. So when, again, explosions, equipment use, or the big cinematic moments, the screen will shake. I like having these in here as options, play around with them, but for me personally, I want to just focus on the gameplay. If we're going to be doing something cinematic or really cool, back on for the most part. I'm just playing 4v4 or rank. I want this stuff off. For your field of view, you can adjust this according to your preferences. I personally play on an FOV of 103 just about every FPS that I play. A higher FOV will let you see a greater range of peripheral vision on the screen at one time. However, though, it can give a somewhat spherical look if taken too far, and an old school skate video fisheye effect. A tight FOV may make objects or enemies at a longer distance look or appear a bit closer, while a super wide FOV can make those targets look kind of tiny. I found that for me, 103 is what I'm used to and comfortable with. However, after a month, I will update you all with my recommendation long-term for Halo Infinite, experimenting basically with some other options. I will say it's worth expanding from the default FOV in my opinion, regardless of your platform. Once again, experiment and find what suits you. So now the big one, sensitivity. Aiming in Halo Infinite feels a bit different from that of any previous Halo title. During the flights, this was a primary feedback point the community raised. While the multiplayer beta of Halo Infinite does feel a bit different, maybe a little better, it still is going to take a lot of time in testing to land on the optimal settings. I will start by saying the same thing I've said for years with every Halo release. There is no such thing as the one and only best sensitivity for everyone. Everybody is different. Everyone has slightly different playstyles and preferences. You have to spend the time finding the sensitivity that is right for you. During the flights, there were many players using a look acceleration of 5 and a look sensitivity of 6. I played on this, and while it did feel more comfortable than default, it tended to be a bit too fast for my liking, my personal playstyle. I do think increasing the look acceleration is something that most players should try right off the bat. And then again, also one more little thing here, an explanation of the dead zones. Essentially, the dead zones give you more responsiveness from your sticks, assuming that your sticks aren't super old or wobbly or worn out. A lower number will give you more responsiveness to your initial movements when we're talking about the center and the axial dead zone. A higher means you will need to apply more motion for the input to register. I lower my dead zones very slightly, but this setting is going to vary widely based around how you aim and again how new or worn out your controller sticks are. It's a good place to experiment, but you need to start first with the look acceleration and the look sensitivity before you go deep diving a little bit further into the dead zones. I personally am playing on a sensitivity of 5, while I know that 6 will most likely be the most popular and probably is going to be where I land eventually. The look acceleration feels mighty slow in this game in comparison with the other Halo titles. So again, many players were and are using the max setting of 5 here. For me personally, I'm experimenting right now with 3 and just playing around. The community is going to need some solid playtime before I can make really detailed recommendations here. They definitely tweaked some things between the flight and the beta regarding aiming. As such, in time, I'll update you guys with my recommendations here after a few weeks. Too fast for my liking, my personal playstyle. I do think increasing the look acceleration is something that most players should try right off the bat. And then again, also one more little thing here, an explanation of the dead zones. Essentially, the dead zones give you more responsiveness from your sticks, assuming that your sticks aren't super old or wobbly or worn out. A lower number will give you more responsiveness to your initial movements when we're talking about the center and the axial dead zone. A higher means you will need to apply more motion for the input to register. I lower my dead zones very slightly, but this setting is going to vary widely based around how you aim and again how new or worn out your controller sticks are. It's a good place to experiment, but you need to start first with the look acceleration and the look sensitivity before you go deep diving a little bit further into the dead zones. I personally am playing on a sensitivity of 5, while I know that 6 will most likely be the most popular, and it probably is going to be where I land eventually. The look acceleration feels mighty responsiveness to your
The enemy has loaded a power seed.
initial movements when we're talking about the center and the axial dead zone. A higher means you will need to apply more motion for the input to register. I lower my dead zones very slightly, but this setting is going to vary widely based around how you aim and again how new or worn out your controller sticks are. It's a good place to experiment, but you need to start first with the look acceleration and the look sensitivity before you go deep diving a little bit further into the dead zones. I personally am playing on a sensitivity of 5, while I know that 6 will most likely be the most popular, and it probably is going to be where I land eventually. The look acceleration feels mighty slow in this game in comparison with the other Halo titles. So again, many players were and are using the max setting of 5 here. For me personally, I'm experimenting right now with 3 and just playing around. The community is going to need some solid playtime before I can make a really detailed recommendation before you go deep diving a little bit further into the dead zones. I personally am playing on a sensitivity of 5, while I know that 6 will most likely be the most popular, and it probably is going to be where I land eventually. The look acceleration feels mighty slow in this game in comparison with the other Halo titles. So again, many players were and are using the max setting of 5 here. For me personally, I'm experimenting right now with 3 and just playing around. The community is going to need some solid playtime before I can make really detailed recommendations here. They definitely tweaked some things between the flight and the beta regarding aiming. As such, in time, I'll update you guys with my recommendations here after a few weeks of practice. A great recommendation if you're really interested right now, watch the pro streams, throw a question in the chat, see what they're liking and why. My biggest recommendation though, and this is a tip passed down for decades now for the controller FPS players, it's to pick a sense and stick with it, training that muscle memory and that instinct. Too often, inexperienced players will change their sensitivity after every game, which doesn't give them enough time to practice and learn instinctively the movements necessary to snap to and track their target. Set it and practice with it. Give it time. I used to say a long time ago, play with that sensitivity for like 2 weeks before you shift it, but since the game just came out, obviously experimenting more frequently is fine right now. But you will only serve to disrupt your gameplay if you are changing it too often. A great tool to learn about which sensitivity you enjoy and what's working is the theater mode. Go back, watch your games, and see if you are consistently or routinely snapping past a target or not turning enough. This is known as under aim and over aim. Consistently under aiming could indicate that maybe a higher sensitivity would help you land that initial snap to target. Vice versa, a lot of high sensitivity players who are new over aim dramatically. Theater mode is one of the best learning tools in your arsenal as a new player, and I'll cover this in an upcoming video. Now that Halo Infinite has a training mode, you can truly practice your aim in a low pressure environment and learn the game faster than ever. In a future video, I'll recommend keybinds for those of you who are playing on mouse and keyboard. I have played both controller and mouse and keyboard extensively in MCC and during the Halo Infinite flights. Right now, I'm finding the controller to be a lot more fun for me personally. However, they both have their pros and cons. I think controller will likely be the better input option for Infinite, but again, this is so player dependent that you should use whatever input method you're most comfy with. After playing on both, I personally prefer the controller. But again, that's a conversation for a future video. I hope you all are enjoying Infinite. I'll be back with more tips later this week. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this helpful, please like the video. And if you're new and you enjoyed, please subscribe. Have a great day and cheers. Strafing and aiming. So weapon drill number 3 for the BR does a great job teaching the concept of how strafe is pivotal to successful aiming. Aiming is a mix of the right stick and the left stick. You are not a static turret, you're not stuck in the ground who only aims with just that right stick. Now the right stick snaps to the target and makes small adjustments while your left stick's movement aids in maintaining that tracking on your opponent. So weapon drill 3 for the BR, watch what it looks like when you try and shoot the enemies without moving yourself, only using the right stick. Try and track the enemy's movement. Now watch what happens when you implement your left stick or your strafe, that movement into the engagement. It is so much easier. Now understand that this weapon drill sees the bots really only move one direction, but it's a great way to familiarize yourself with this concept. The same principles apply in a gunfight. As you and your opponent strafe, you're using both the left stick and the right